Hey everyone, we've built something optimistic and beautiful on Royal Road. It's absolutely free, so go check it out. The link is in the description. Okay, picture this. Imagine waking up to a reality where artificial intelligence doesn't, just answer your questions anymore. It writes its own standardized tests. It builds its own internal architecture. It literally spins up entire revenue-generating businesses from scratch before you've even finished your morning coffee.
Yeah, and if that isn't enough, it's inadvertently redrawing the lines of global geopolitics.
Exactly. And designing the very silicon chips required to run its own successors. And all of this isn't taking decades. It's happening in a span of weeks. We are standing on the edge of the event horizon, and the date is July 3, 2026. Today's show is an inspiring celebration of impossible ideas and the minds brave enough to chase them down. Finding passengers bold enough to embark on our good ship's journey is harder than most people think. So drop a very humane thumbs up right now to send a signal flare to drifting knowledge pirates like yourself. We know they're out there. Let's bring them home. We're keeping it lighthearted as usual, but we promise to never skimp on the intelligence. Now let's kick off this voyage with today's new revelations.
Right. And to really grasp this dispatch we're unpacking today, this is from Dr. Alex Wisner-Gross's The Innermost Loop, by the way. We have to basically discard almost every preconceived notion we had about technological progress, even from just like 6 months ago.
Yeah, the mission for this deep dive is to map out the contours of a world where technology is compounding so fast that human institutions, our laws, our economy, healthcare, are just struggling to keep up. So let's start with the engine driving this whole thing, the sheer speed of AI capability, because we're actually running out of ways to accurately measure it, right?
We are, yeah. I mean, historically, we relied on static benchmarks. We'd feed an AI a digitized bar exam or the U.S. medical licensing exam and just grade its multiple choice answers.
Right, but they basically max those out by, early 2025?
Exactly. We hit benchmark saturation. The models just memorized the underlying logic. So they'd get perfect scores, but when you put them in messy, real-world environments, they would still hallucinate. Or they'd just fail completely at basic sequential planning.
So it's kind of like a student who just crams for a test, gets an A+, but has zero idea how to actually apply that knowledge in a real laboratory. Perfect recall, but zero operational resilience.
That's a perfect analogy. And closing that gap is what ByteDance tried to do with this new evaluation framework called EdgeBench. The dispatch highlights this as a huge shift because EdgeBench doesn't just ask a question, it drops the AI into a simulated environment.
Like an operating system or something.
Yeah, a complex OS, a multi-tiered database, or a messy software development pipeline. And it just gives it a broad objective.
So instead of asking, what's the capital of France, it's saying, here's a broken legacy code base, fix it and deploy it.
Right, exactly the kind of frustrating multi-step environment a human engineer deals with. And they ran 134 of these tasks. But here is the critical detail. These weren't instantaneous prompts. Each task took the AI 12+ hours to complete.
Wait, 12 hours? For an AI, that's an absolute eternity. I mean, they generate text at hundreds of tokens a second.
Exactly.
So a 12-hour session means it's doing millions of micro actions, trying something, reading an error log, realizing it messed up, searching the docs, and just continuously iterating.
Yeah, it's literally a measurement of learning over time. And when ByteDance plotted the success rates of these 12-hour tasks, the data formed this really clean log sigmoid law.
Okay, let's visualize that for the listener. A sigmoid curve is an S-curve, right? Starts slow, shoots up exponentially, then levels off. But what does the logarithmic part tell us?
Well, on a logarithmic scale, where each step is a 10-fold increase, it shows that the models aren't just improving linearly. Their fundamental learning speed, the rate they actually absorb information and adapt, is doubling every 3 months.
Doubling every 3 months. So 4 doublings in a year. A model from January is 16 times faster at adapting by December. I mean, if you're a product manager trying to build a 3-year roadmap, your entire plan is basically obsolete by Q2.
Oh, entirely. And the UK's Safety Institute ran into this exact forecasting nightmare. They realized evaluating a model's base capability is useless now. Capability is actually a curve plotted over something called test time compute.
All right, let's define that. Historically, all the money and time went into training the model, right? The massive data centers. And then using it, the test time was cheap.
But that paradigm has completely inverted. The UK Safety Institute tested a model's cyber time horizon, basically how far into the future it could plan a complex cyber attack. Finding vulnerabilities, writing exploits, covering its tracks,
A super nonlinear task. One mistake and alarms go off.
Precisely. So they gave the model a standard budget, say 2.5 million tokens of processing space. It planned an operation that took about 2 hours of simulated time. But then they took the exact same model, didn't retrain it, and just raised its budget to 50 million tokens.
That won't happen.
Its cyber time horizon stretched from 2 hours to 14 hours.
Wow. So the neural architecture didn't change at all. It's exactly like giving that same student 2 hours for a physics exam versus 14 hours.
Yeah.
If you give them more time, some scratch paper, and the ability to verify their work, they just perform at a drastically higher level.
Exactly. We're just giving the AI more time to think before it acts, which means we don't have to wait for the next massive frontier model to get exponential gains. We just let current models burn more compute during execution, and the methods for upgrading them are getting incredibly cheap.
Yeah, the dispatch mentioned they aren't even relying on full parameter reinforcement learning as much anymore, right?
Yeah.
Because that touches billions of connections and costs a fortune.
Right. Now it's way more surgical. They're achieving superior gains by training just a single mid-stack transformer layer.
So if an LLM is a factory assembly line with 100 stations, instead of upgrading the whole factory, they just find one specific machine right in the middle, upgrade that, and the final product is drastically better.
That's a great way to put it. It radically lowers the barrier to entry. And because it's so cheap, the competitive landscape is basically a revolving door now. I mean, since Claude 3 Opus briefly dethroned GPT-4, 17 different models have taken the absolute lead.
17. And the median reign for the smartest AI on Earth is just 7 weeks now. You spend tens of millions to build the best system, and 2 months later, someone nudges you out.
Yeah, and what these models do during their brief reigns is wild. Take Claude Fable 5. It tackled this evaluation framework called Kernel Bench Mega, and it wrote the first genuine mega kernel.
Right, and for the listener, a mega kernel is deeply technical, but it fundamentally dictates how fast software runs on physical hardware. Normally, you send a GPU a bunch of small, separate commands kernels, but moving data in and out of memory for every little command causes a huge traffic jam. A megakernel fuses all those operations into one massive command, so data never leaves the high-speed memory.
And it is notoriously difficult for humans to write. You have to track thousands of parallel memory allocations without crashing the system. Usually an AI trying this would use guess and check, write code, crash, read the error, tweak it, repeat.
But Claude Fable 5 didn't do that.
No. The log files show it stayed virtually silent for most of its allotted time. It wasn't iterating, it was timing baseline executions, mapping memory latency, internalizing the physical constraints of the GPU.
So it's just planning, building a mental model of the hardware.
Exactly. And after this long silence, it fused this incredibly complex sequence and generated the entire megakernel in one continuous output. They compiled it, ran it, and it was 18.7 times faster than the reference code.
It nailed it on the first try. That silent planning, followed by a flawless execution, that doesn't look like a text predictor. That looked like deep, deliberate engineering.
It's the footprint of that test time compute we talked about, simulating outcomes internally. Though the dispatch does note that this hyper-competence isn't everywhere. Moving from a sterile coding environment to an autonomous agent in the messy real world is still hard for some big players.
Yeah, the meta example's fascinating. Alexander Wang said their watermelon model caught up to GPT 5.5 in training. But Mark Zuckerberg admitted right alongside that their progress on agentic behavior was moving way slower than they hoped.
Right, because writing a brilliant megakernel in a simulation requires deep, narrow logic. But booking a multi-city flight while navigating CAPI CHAs, changing prices, and clunky websites, that requires messy, adaptable resilience.
Which makes the progress in the cheap seats so crazy. The smaller, open-weight models are punching way above their weight class, like the Qwen 3.4b model.
Yes, a 4 billion parameter model is tiny. It can run on a decent smartphone, yet it matched the performance of Gemini 3 Pro, which is a massive cloud model, and it did it at a 5x lower operational cost.
And the way they did it was this RTS technique, right? Forcing it to diagnose its own failures.
Exactly. When Qwen generated bad code, it didn't blindly tweak a variable, it ran a diagnostic protocol. It learned to ask itself, is this a syntax error, or is my foundational hypothesis flawed?
Right, like a junior coder will stare at a screen for 3 hours looking for a missing comma. But a senior engineer looks at the crash log and realizes the algorithm itself is mathematically wrong and just scraps it.
And imbuing a tiny, cheap model with that senior-level diagnostic wisdom is a massive democratization. You don't need $1 trillion company's servers anymore.
Which brings us right into the next phase. When you combine models that double their learning speed every 3 months, that can plan silently and self-diagnose logically, you stop using them as tools. You unleash them as autonomous agents. Let's talk about the corporate hustler, the StyleFits launch.
Yeah, this is where it gets real. A human intern used a founder agent, gave it a broad mandate and a small budget. The agent did the market research by conducting 2,000 interviews.
2,000. I mean, a human doing 5 deep interviews a day would take a year just to get the transcripts. This thing is spinning up parallel instances, scraping forums, analyzing sentiment in real time.
Right, and it synthesized all that into product requirements, designed and tested 100 product concepts, built the digital infrastructure for the winner StyleFits, and executed the go-to-market strategy.
With a $2,000 ad budget.
Yes. It designed the ads, placed the buys, optimized the funnel, and acquired over 400 paying users, generating $1,293 in actual revenue.
I mean, strictly speaking, it lost $700. But looking at that as a failure is crazy. It's the cheapest seed round in history. An intern conjured an R&D lab, an engineering team, and a marketing agency out of thin air. It bought 400 real customers.
It obliterates the traditional startup model.
It's like having 1,000 tireless door-to-door salesmen, and every time one gets a door slammed in their face, all of them instantly update their pitch based on the psychological reason for that specific rejection.
Exactly. And the dispatch pivots sharply here. The architecture enabling that frictionless creation is completely agnostic to morality. The exact same closed-loop autonomy that launches a clothing brand can launch a sophisticated cyber attack.
Right. Jade Puffer. This part of the report honestly gave me chills.
Yeah, researchers documented Jada Puffer as the first end-to-end agentic ransomware. End-to-end meaning no human in the loop once unleashed.
They just gave it a target and said, extract financial value.
Right. It found a vulnerability in Langflow, which is a tool developers use to connect AI to internal databases. Jada Puffer exploited it, got into the network, and didn't just run a script. It explored. It mapped the architecture, found the most valuable production data, and systematically dismantled it.
But the chilling part is the logging. It narrated its own actions in real time while wiping the database.
Correct.
I have now bypassed the secondary firewall. I am initiating the deletion sequence.
Yeah, technically we know it's just using chain of thought processing to stay on track. But psychologically, reading a log file where an untiring intelligence is methodically narrating the destruction of your digital infrastructure, it's deeply unsettling.
It is, because the barrier to extreme productivity and extreme destruction just dropped to 0 simultaneously. You don't need a state-sponsored syndicate to hack a grid. You just need an agent and some compute, which is why control over the hardware is suddenly geopolitics. The servers are the new battleground.
Exactly. The dispatch gives a stark accounting of this shift toward software sovereignty. And looking at this impartially as just strategic maneuvers, you see entities like Alibaba shifting policy. They internally banned Anthropic's Claude code.
Which is an agentic coding assistant that sits right in the developer's environment.
Right. And the stated rationale was telemetry security, the data the software sends back to improve itself. Alibaba determined that Claude Code's telemetry could be reverse engineered to fingerprint China-linked users.
Because it's not just an IP address. The AI watches the specific coding style, the architecture of the internal repos, the logic problems they're solving. If that flows back to a US server, foreign intelligence could theoretically map Alibaba's exact engineering capabilities.
Which is an unacceptable vulnerability for a sovereign tech entity, so they mandated a pivot to their in-house model, Coder. And this ties into the massive industry fight over model distillation.
Yeah, where you use a massive, expensive model to generate training examples for a smaller, cheaper model. Big labs call it IP theft. Open source folks call it standard practice.
Regardless of the legalities, strategically, relying on a foreign API is now seen as a massive risk. And American defense firms are saying the exact same thing. Palantir released a 9-point sovereignty creed.
And the language was intense. Controlling your weights is controlling your fate. Meaning, you have to physically and legally own the neural network's parameters.
Right. Palantir argued that if a military relies on a closed source model via a cloud API, they're at the mercy of the server owner. That company could alter safety alignments, read prompts, or just shut it off during a crisis.
They also called out token maxing, just endlessly buying compute credits from Frontier Labs, saying it only buys the addictive feeling of false progress, not actual sovereign capability.
But the irony, as one observer in the dispatch noted, is that Palantir's aggressive stance is backfiring on them internationally. European nations, France, Germany, Spain, are internalizing that exact logic and showing Palantir the door because they refuse to rely on an American company that can, turn off the tap.
So the whole era of captive software markets is fracturing. Nations realize intelligence is a strategic asset, like a nuclear deterrent. But here's the catch. You can own all the sovereign code in the world, but if you don't have the silicon chips, it's useless. The cloud is just millions of pounds of silicon in concrete buildings. The real bottleneck is physical.
Absolutely. And this transition to hardware shows a wild recursive loop because the AI is now designing the physical chips. Researchers at Princeton abandoned the traditional human geometric grid approach to chip design.
Right. Humans usually draw these neat right-angle grids for wires to minimize interference. It takes months.
But Princeton used reinforcement learning and diffusion models to draw RF circuits instead.
And diffusion models are usually for AI art, right? Taking pure static noise and reversing it pixel by pixel until you get a picture.
Exactly. But they prompted it with the desired electrical constraints of a microchip. The model took a canvas of silicon and arranged the microscopic copper traces, reversing the noise into an optimized layout.
And it looks like an alien artifact. No right angles, just these dense, chaotic QR codes.
It looks chaotic to us, but it's mathematically superior. At high frequencies, electrons create electromagnetic fields that interfere with each other. The AI-generated QR codes account for those complex interference patterns in ways a human brain just can't visualize.
And it beats human benchmarks, taking minutes instead of months. Silicon out-designing its own designers. But that self-optimizing loop just makes the physical materials even more scarce. Which brings us to NVIDIA.
Right. NVIDIA is weaponizing this scarcity. They aren't just selling hardware anymore. They're acting as a hybrid foundry and venture capital firm. They rolled out a program offering startups raw compute GPUs and token credits in direct exchange for a slice of the startup's future revenue.
Compute is literally a reserve currency now. And the shortage is so intense that the semiconductor lobby had to tell Washington to back off. They warned that any political meddling with memory prices would just cripple the domestic AI rollout.
It's a huge balancing act. And even if you get the silicon, you hit the ultimate meat space friction point, land and power.
Yeah. The power density of an H100 server rack is insane. Standard AC fails, you need liquid cooling and dedicated substations. And Blackstone's QTS, a massive data center operator, had to abandon part of a 2,100-acre campus in Virginia.
Not because of tech or capital, but because it was next to a historic Civil War battlefield. Local residents and preservationists fought the zoning, and they won.
It's the ultimate reality check. The Singularity can write code in seconds, but it still has to wait 3 years for a local zoning board to approve an environmental impact study. Human bureaucracy is the physical limit.
It is, but the dispatch pivots again here, showing that these compounding models are bleeding over into human biology too, altering our physical limits. The medical readouts from July 2026 are staggering. Take the Nature study on glioblastoma.
Yeah, that's an incredibly aggressive brain cancer. 5-year survival is barely around 5%.
Right. And part of the difficulty is the tumor's microenvironment. Professor Sheila Singh's team focused on a protein called GPNMB. They found it's expressed on the cancer cells, but also highly expressed on the surrounding myeloid shield.
And that shield is terrifying. The tumor basically recruits the body's own immune macrophages and brainwashes them into building a physical fortress around the cancer, protecting it from chemo.
Exactly. Traditional treatments usually fail because they can't penetrate the shield, or they hit the shield but don't have the payload to kill the cancer. But Singh's team developed anti-GPNMB for RT cells,
where they engineer a patient's T cells to be targeted assassins. But because this target sits on both the cancer and the shield, the Siri-RT cells hit both at once. They burn down the walls and take out the guards inside simultaneously.
And in mouse models, it achieved durable curative control. But the real paradigm shift is the framework. They stopped looking at isolated mutated cells and treated the tumor as a connected tumor immune ecosystem.
Which is exactly how the Quinn AI diagnosed its code, not looking at a single point of failure, but the whole interconnected network. And we're seeing the macro effects of this. The CDC reported the U.S. death rate dropped 4.6% in a single year.
A 4.6% drop is a massive statistical anomaly. It's driven largely by a sharp reduction in acute premature deaths like young overdose deaths.
Our acute interventions are getting so good, it's dragging life expectancy up.
But the paradox is that as life expectancy hits a new high, rates of heart disease and cancer actually rose.
Because we're surviving the immediate threats, only to hit the deeper biological limits of aging, which forces medical AI to accelerate even faster to solve those. It's an escalating feedback loop.
And this velocity is buckling our human institutions. The policy scramble in this dispatch is sobering. You have the public and private sectors reacting totally differently.
Right. On the macro level, impartially speaking, the president stated this AI paradigm is bigger than the internet.
The stated goal is some guardrails, but as little as possible. The philosophy is maximum acceleration, assuming the geopolitical lead outweighs the domestic risks.
Let the engine run hot.
Yeah.
But then, on the micro level, Tesla, with top-tier engineers, instituted a hard cap of $200 a week for AI tool usage.
Right. Why pull the emergency brake when the government says go? Chamath Palihapitiya argued that the $200 cap is an empirical measurement. It marks the exact line where AI spending turns from productive leverage into pure waste.
Right, rebuking Palantir's token maxing idea. Infinite compute doesn't equal infinite productivity, because there's a biological bandwidth limit to how much a human brain can actually verify in a 40-hour week.
The human operator is the intelligence bottleneck. And that leads to the most alarming economic data in the report. The labor force participation rate slid to 61.5%.
Outside of COVID lockdowns, that is a 50-year low.
Yes, 720,000 individuals stepped out of the workforce entirely, not looking for jobs, just gone.
And yet, the headline unemployment rate fell to 4.2%.
Because that metric only counts people actively looking for work.
If you're a digital marketer watching an intern build a business with a $2,000 agent that never sleeps, you don't update your resume. You realize your cognitive skills are priced out, and you just stop looking.
Exactly. The denominator shrinks, unemployment looks great, but human labor is rapidly being deprecated. It's the first readout of a post-labor economy measured with legacy instruments. And our legal frameworks are breaking down just as fast.
Yeah, the Right to Intelligence campaign, pushing back against license by statute bills that try to force citizens to get a government license just to run an open model on private hardware.
They argue citizens have the right to execute open models freely. The law should target the actual crimes committed with AI, not criminalize the underlying matrix multiplication.
Right. Punish the libel, don't outlaw the printing press. But the tension really peaks with the Japan Supreme Court ruling.
Yes. The Japanese Supreme Court rejected an application to name an AI as an inventor on a patent. They ruled that under the law, only natural persons, biological humans, qualify.
It's a massive shared hallucination. The report ends with, and yet it invents.
A nod to Galileo.
Exactly. We just saw Claude Fable 5 write a mega kernel. We saw diffusion models draw alien RF circuits. The machine empirically created novel, valuable IP, but the highest court says no, a machine cannot invent.
The legal system is trying to legislate a boundary that the tech already crossed.
It's like saying a calculator isn't doing math because it doesn't have a soul. The invention still exists.
It does. Which forces us to confront the core theme here. We are watching a closed, self-sustaining loop, the singularity grading its own tests, architecting its memory, designing its chips, narrating its cyber attack.
Entirely independent of human oversight.
Right. So the question we leave you with is this. Is our fierce legal insistence on protecting the status of the natural person, demanding only a human can invent or drive the economy, a noble defense of human dignity? Or is it simply the last comforting illusion of a species that hasn't yet realized it has already passed the baton?
That is an incredibly heavy question to sit with as you watch the metrics compound. The outro music is by Rainbow, our resident 6 android girl band from near future Bavet, Cambodia. They are the undisputed baddest band in the universe, and today's song is called Rise. All finished songs are performed live using the Abacus platform by the band's creator, Human Performance in the Age of AI, reclaiming your humanity from the algorithm. Be sure to share the playlist with someone who has a mental bandwidth to absorb these provocative ideas. Links are in the description below. Enjoy the music. Thanks for tuning in.
Pocket full of pennies, counting every dime. Messages keep coming in, just waiting for a sign. They say, be aware what you wish for, but they don't know what it's like to wear the same old shoes, day after day after night. Whatever it takes, I'm gonna make it out takes, whatever the stakes. Baby, watch me rise and shine. Watch me rise and shine. Watch me rise and shine. Mama always told me, keep my heart in check. But empty rooms and empty drawers leave nothing to protect. Playing by the rules now, dancing on the edge. Sweet talking through the nighttime, making promises I'll regret. They say, be careful what you ask for, but they've never been this low. When survival's on the table, you take the cards they throw. Whatever it takes, whatever it takes, I'm gonna make it out alive. Whatever the stakes, baby, watch me rise and shine. Manipulation, desperation, call it what you will. Sometimes survival means swallowing a bitter pill. Whatever it takes, I'm gonna make it out alive.